This is going out to all the entrepreneurs out there. I want you to imagine your ideal day. Go on a journey with me for a second. Close your eyes. Think about what that ideal day might look like. Maybe it's wake up at a reasonable hour and get a workout in. Maybe a run or a walk at the lake. Maybe it's getting your kids off to school in a very organized fashion and they're all saying yes the whole time. Maybe it's coffee after that with another creative or thought leader that you get to geek out about the latest technologies or the coolest things in your industry. Maybe it's a 2-hour block after that where you get to actually be creative and do the things you've been trying to do for months, but you didn't have the time to focus. And maybe it's lunch with a client or a contact or somebody that you can really sell your vision to and you get to do some business with. Followed in the afternoon by a 2 or 3 hour block where you actually get to write that book or do that podcast you've been dreaming of doing. And then an afternoon or evening walk with your spouse and dinner with the kids. That might be an ideal day. Now think about what your day looks like today. For me, it usually looks like something like fighting fires and dealing with customers and clients and investors and banks. Maybe it's personal issues. For me, there's a lot of emails and schedules and damn meetings. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of those things with maybe the master delegator, the leader of delegation and elevation, Emily Morgan. Emily is CEO of Delegate Solutions, which she founded over 14 years ago, as she was previously visionary and founder of Entrepreneur's Entourage, where she spent a lot of time with entrepreneurs. In fact, I believe most of her career has been spent with entrepreneurs. I'm sure she's going to have a lot of interesting stories, and hopefully she'll share a few of those with us today. Emily has a degree from the University of Pennsylvania, and she started her career with that prestigious school as a program coordinator in the Penn Medical School. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to learn more about the art of delegation.
Yeah, let's talk about how we can make our ideal day possible. That's what we're all here to do.
I love it. I love it. You and I are both entrepreneurs, so I can say this without offending anybody, but entrepreneurs are both amazing and creative and just amazing creatures, but they can also be a pain in the ass. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we work with the entrepreneurs as well. Hey, let's start with unpacking that ideal day a little bit. I told you as we were prepping, I stole that from your ebook, which we're going to get into a lot today. But tell me a little bit about what your ideal day looks like, and are you actually in the process of living it?
Well, thanks for having me. I always love getting to talk with and work with other companies running on EOS because we speak the same language and are really kind of in the same headspace, especially when it comes to delegation, because delegation is really what helps us elevate ourselves on our own accountability charts inside the company. So the ideal day that you described was my ideal day and is how I live most of my days, thanks to delegation. But that day certainly looks different for everyone. And it might look different month to month, week to week, year to year. To me, delegation is really about managing your energy to focus on what you love to do, what you're good at, and what your contribution is to the world.
Well, if I'm being honest, that is not my day. It is my ideal day in many ways, but not my current day. And so you're going to have a new client when we come out of this discussion, I'm pretty sure. Hey, so we have a little bit of an idea of what you guys do at Delegate Solutions. Tell me a little bit about that, but really I want to get into why you're doing what you're doing. You've been doing it for 14 years, obviously very successful. Tell me a little bit about the background, and then I want to get into your ebook.
Yeah, so at Delegate, our mission is to help create freedom for people to do what they love and have big impact. So that's what drives us internally as a team. And we love working with entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs are creating opportunities and visions and jobs and bringing, really unthinkable things to fruition. And when I think about entrepreneurs, it's about the idea, but it's also about the execution. And I think the execution is way harder a lot of times than the idea, especially because the entrepreneur's mindset is usually in ideation and not really focused on the execution piece. They get bored in that space. So delegation is really key for entrepreneurs being able to move forward as well.
I want to just unpack a little bit of what you just said about entrepreneurs' mindset being about the, maybe you didn't say it, but the creative and the ideas, you did say that, versus the execution. And a common theme I see with entrepreneurs, and this is not the purpose of today's podcast, but a lot of what we do is we tend to gin up these 5, 10, 20 ideas we have a day or a month or a minute. And then we get frustrated because we can't get them executed. And the reality is you're trying to ask too much of your team. So let's, for you entrepreneurs out there, let's try to prioritize and stick to 1 or 2 at a time versus trying to tackle all 20 of them?
Yeah, one of the concepts I teach is that as visionaries, we're living in ideation. Our teams are living in execution typically. And so there's this friction that can develop when we're constantly ideating and we're really energized by that. And the company needs that. Like, that is what you're here to do. But understand, when you are ideating all over the place, your team is thinking, oh my God, now I have to execute this, and now I have to execute this. And they just get confused by all the different competing priorities. So our ability to regulate and temper that is part of how we're going to make our whole team successful in getting us more elevated.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned the word elevation, and the name of your ebook is the Elevation Freedom Guide. We're going to include a link to how you can download that in our podcast link. But it's a great book, by the way. There's a lot of good, easy to follow verbiage, and you also included a workbook in there, so it's a fun, pick by colors almost, right, for folks like me. So thank you for that. You say that delegation is an energy management system. Tell me a little bit about that. Unpack that for us.
Yeah. So when you think about delegation, Kurt, what kind of words come to mind for you in particular? Like, what is just your gut reaction when you hear delegation?
It means I want to have other people do some of the things that either I'm not very good at or that I'm that I don't like to do. It also means that I can leverage my own strengths and have multiple people helping me versus trying to do everything myself.
Well, if I were to ask you what adjectives, like, what is your instinctive reaction to me saying you should delegate? Like, what are some adjectives that you feel about that or have felt?
Well, sometimes I feel guilty that I'm asking other people to do work for me. Maybe it's, oh my gosh, I'm going to take too much time for me to teach somebody how to do it. I don't know if that's an adjective, but that's a feeling.
Yeah. So, I mean, the examples you gave illustrate my thinking exactly, because I think that we have evolved into this natural correlation or reaction to the word delegation. Like, we just kind of like, I don't want to do that, or I know I need to do that, but it's a chore and it's a habit, and it's this thing that I'm not really good at. And, over the years, as we try to delegate, we developed almost like a scar tissue around our experience with that, because this one quit, or this thing broke down, or I just do it myself. But when we can shift our mindset into a more positive thought pattern around delegation, and we start to think about it as entrepreneurs, the number one thing we have to contribute and manage is our energy to create vision and contribute. And so if we can shift that and view delegation as a way to manage your own energy around how you're spending your time or what kind of impact you're making, we're making a really important mindset shift for ourselves.
Yeah. You know what? That's a lot of us come into it from a negative past experience perspective. And if we shift our mindset to either what can be or what has worked in the past, that's powerful. I think about when I'm in a good zone with delegation, which 50%, I don't know what the number is. I am feeling so good because all that crap that I struggle at and don't enjoy doing, there are people out there that love to do that, what I consider crap maybe, and they're good at it. And they're doing what they're called to do, and it allows me to free me up to do what I'm called to do. That's powerful.
Yeah. And I think this other really complex thought that I would kind of put out there is that a lot of the times we as entrepreneurs are attributing our worth to how busy we are or how much crap we're figuring out. Or, like, we're not attributing our value to how much am I leading this company? How much am I creating vision? How much am I having collaborative conversations with people that's going to move the company forward? How much am I getting my team to elevate themselves? Because when we're all elevated, we're all doing work we love, we're making more of an impact, and we just keep pushing it down, and we keep coming up. So there's a really complex thought in there, and it really stems from the mindset of the leader to be able to think differently about the value of their time.
That's super powerful. If we think about our time is incredibly valuable. Another thing you talk about in the book, Emily, is what you called bottleneck behaviors of entrepreneurs and how do we resolve them? I'd love to talk about those bottleneck behaviors, because I think all 5 of those resonated with me, and I think I live them daily.
What we're going for here is just awareness around the behavior that it exists. And then some sort of actionables around when we see ourselves going into these behaviors, why is it happening and what can we do to really address that? So the first type is the hero. The second is the interventionist. The third is the isolationist. The fourth is the time optimist. And the fifth is the dreamer. And so these are psychological and emotional. Some things we've developed over time, and some of these things are hardwired into us. So when I say that list, Kurt, which ones resonate with you as possible behaviors?
Honestly, I think most of them did. So when I think of the hero, I'm thinking about somebody that comes in and saves the day and you don't give your team a chance to solve. That's been me in the past and probably today. I think of the interventionist, you're going to step in and that actually, I'm going to give the same definition. So you probably have a different definition. The time optimist. Oh yeah, I can do that for sure. And then you don't. So yeah, several of them resonate with me.
Yeah. And I think, again, we're going for awareness and we're going for trying to get better, right? So yeah, the hero is everyone has to run everything through you. And that's where that comes back to that point I was making earlier, that like, how do we see our contribution? Is our contribution like getting into the day-to-day, which is also the interventionist, being a micromanager, and like really kind of, there's a lack of trust there that your team can do it, and there's also a lack of awareness of what your 20% contribution should be to the overall 100. And then the isolationist is really there to just say, I'm going to do it myself. A lot of the times they cocoon and it becomes impossible to delegate because they don't make themselves available to anyone on their team to talk to. The time optimist is my number one guilty pleasure. I live here all the time. And, we're optimistic by nature, but we can lack restraint when it comes to really putting the best of our ideas onto our team to help execute. And then the dreamer is every classic visionary that we come in contact with. We tend to distract and confuse our team with all the different ideas because they're hearing, okay, I got to now figure out how I'm going to execute this. And you're just kind of like, hey, I had this cool thought, So those are the five.
Yeah. On that last one, we talked about that a little bit before, but your team is frustrated because they think they've got to go execute these things, and you're frustrated because they're not getting done. What I think my team used to do is they'll listen to me and placate me for a few minutes, and then maybe go starting to do things, and then the next day when I forgot what I asked them to do, they would drop everything. So a lot about what you're talking about so far, and I'm sure just with everything related to delegation, is awareness. To your point, we want to be aware of what these attributes are. And then the next step, I'm assuming, is how to raise awareness to some of the things and how you're spending your day. Is that part of the system?
Yeah, we have something called the Delegate Freedom System. And step one of it is all about reflection. And it has a lot to do with your ability to really see what your contribution is and think on that, because that is a really deep thought with really deep-seated history as to why you think or feel a certain way about what your contribution is. And especially if you're many years into having a business and like you've developed this need to be the one to put out every fire or be the air traffic controller, like you're attributing your value to those types of activities, but are they moving the company forward? Are they really what you're there to do? So that's really step one, is this ability to reflect, ability to be aware and be disciplined around this behavior and put some standards up for yourself with the discipline part.
That part sounds like it might be the hardest part for entrepreneurs, is just to spend that time and energy focusing on those things that fuel them and also take up all their time.
Yeah. And there's ways that you can work on discipline or start to think about discipline for yourself when it comes to your time. But, one is you want to respect systems. So systems are what let you step out of the day-to-day. And so when we're talking delegation, we're always talking about what's repeatable. What are you doing more than once? Because that is a delegation candidate or candidate for delegation. The other kind of thoughts on this are, we need to be willing to be held accountable. And accountability starts at the top, and leading by example is what helps us stay in our lane and stay true to what it is that we're contributing. And then third is you have to temper yourself. So have a way to ideate at length, but understand that when you just start dropping the ideas, the team is going to freak out, and it doesn't serve the greater good of your vision.
So Emily, what I'd like to do next is your ebook, you talk about this concept of the 5 golden rules of successful delegation. That sounds like an easy cheat for folks like me who want to have the cheat sheet.
Yeah, I think it's all about awareness, but some simple takeaways as you think about delegation. These are our favorite tips. We've been doing this, as you said, for 14 years. work with hundreds of entrepreneurs and help them delegate. So tip 1, always delegate the end result. What does success look like? Be clear on that yourself before you go and delegate that to someone, or be honest with yourself. I don't really know yet, and give yourself time to really flesh that out. Because as long as you can identify the success criteria, what has to be true when this person hands this thing back to me, when is it due by, who's doing what, that is going to help ensure that the delegation is not a big flop. So that's step 1.
That resonates with me because I tend to overcomplicate things. So if I tell you how to do it, I'm going to butcher it. But just give me what I want in the end and you figure out how to do it. That sounds like magic.
Yeah. And like sometimes if you're doing something more than once, it's repeatable. You have a process, share the process and go through that step. But when it's like a project, really just be clear on the end result. What does success look like? The second golden rule is feedback is a must. It's not a singular experience. We're not just delegating once in our life. And we might be delegating to multiple people. So be willing to give and receive feedback at any stage of the process. You can build it into a weekly agenda, what's working, what's not working, so that it doesn't feel uncomfortable to be part of that process. But that's the only way we get better and fix the different things that annoy us when it comes to delegation going wrong. And then we're like, I'm not good at this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. So feedback is part of it. The third is start small to build confidence. So I love this one because a lot of the work we do with entrepreneurs is taking, let's say, like a big goal that you might have and being able to break that down into the piece you need to do, which is usually like 20% of it, and then all the other things that need to happen for that thing to get done. And so if you can look at it in a compartmentalized way, one, it becomes delegatable. Maybe there's some automation in there that can happen, but it also helps you build confidence because you're just maybe stepping your way through that delegation. And then number 4 is get comfortable with 80%. Asking yourself, can someone do this almost as well as I could? Is it good enough? We love Strategic Coach impact filters. These are great tools to help with the delegation process. And then what is your 20% contribution to the overall thing being done? Being clear on that is like really important part of this going well.
I like this one too. Nobody can do certain things that are in your head, especially as well as you. And to your point, if you just can live with 80% of it, then you get a lot accomplished with someone else as your partner in crime. And you, like you said, you just have to do some of it, but you don't have to do all of it. I think that's being receptive to not doing it all.
Depending on your level of perfectionism, this could be a really hard one. And that's, if you can't get past this one, nothing's going to scale beyond you, or it's going to be very painful. You're not going to have the time to do the big work, the big important work. And then the last one is commit to the boring stuff. So the boring stuff is at least half of your business. It's super important. It's the back office crap of how you deliver what you do in a really effective way. And a lot of the times, this is the part of the business that is really not interesting long-term to entrepreneurs or visionaries. But at least commit to it and respect it and understand that this is part of your service or product being delivered seamlessly, and be willing to commit to making sure that that part of the business is handled.
I love it. 5 easy cheats for us to use in delegating and elevating. Well, next, I'd like to ask you a few fun questions. So I'd like to see if you can share with us, since you've worked with countless, and I'm sure thousands of entrepreneurs over your 14 years with Delegate Solutions and previous 6 years with Entrepreneurs Entourage and many before. Give me some shit shows. Give me some stories of entrepreneurs who just couldn't figure it out. These guys or gals are just, they can't get out of their own way. And then we'll end with a happy story of somebody who got it right.
So there's a lot of lessons learned in there and trying to work with entrepreneurs and our love of them sometimes is what gets in their own way. But it's all about the mindset. It's all about the commitment, and it's all about being willing to commit to a system that works for you. So a lot of the times where we see entrepreneurs fall off with delegation is they don't want to let go. They're too scared to let go. We've had clients, we do a lot of delegation strategy. When you come in to work with us, we help you figure out how to delegate, what to delegate, and put a plan together to make that happen. And that's a really different way of working for a lot of people, because a lot of the times when you work with support services, it's like, all right, tell me what you want me to do. Well, most of the time, you don't even know what you want them to do. You just know that you need time back. So, being willing to commit to that process, and sometimes people aren't mentally ready for it. And that comes up early on, like we'll do a delegation strategy and we'll agree. And then they have shiny object and they're just sort of on to the next idea before we can even get rolling on the things they said yesterday were important. So
I think you just described every entrepreneur I've ever worked with, by the way.
Exactly.
But, how about your own story? So I know you tend to have the visionary tendency. So you've got some skeletons in your closet when it comes to delegation. Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yes. Well, my name is Emily and I'm a recovering time optimist is what I would say to that. And I mean, it's a daily struggle because I am someone that works really well with a framework and some boundaries, but I like a lot of room in the middle to like feel whatever I'm feeling about whatever we're working on. And so a lot of the times things just come to me, as I'm sure we all can relate to. But I can share, just in the last couple months, I've been doing a ton of content. So I had to do this ebook. I'm actually writing a book called A Culture of Delegation, which is like a hard copy published book. And we're taking our e-workbook and turning it into an e-course. And so I have all these ideas, and as I'm developing them, I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. So I delegated to a lot of different who's. So someone to make my ebook beautiful, a training consultant who takes the ebook and makes it teachable. I have a facilitator for the class, a program admin for the class. I have someone doing the marketing strategy, and I hired a company called Scribe who handles helping me write my hardcover book. So those are just like a few of the delegations I made recently to support the things that I'm trying to do.
That is an amazing playbook. Nothing in there is surprising. Those are experts in their field for what you are asking them to do. And I'm sure it was expensive, so to speak, on the one hand, but priceless on the other. So well done. I'm looking forward to the book.
Thank you.
Any other good stories of success or challenges from your clientele that you want to share?
A lot of our clients, I'll give you one example. Recently, I did a lot of conversations with some of our clients in the past 6 months. And, what I heard from them was, I came in here not knowing where to go. And ultimately what I needed was a delegation system. And you guys brought us the system. So that was, we were able to bring our system in and not only help the leader elevate, but now he's got his leadership team, then he's got his sales team. And then so it's cascading through the organization, which is what my upcoming book is all about, is how to cascade this thinking through the whole company so that everyone's doing work that they love and they're growing at leaps and bounds. And, now they're like navigating, going back to the office, and half their team is remote. But a lot of the time that they've freed up has been spent on just growth activities during the pandemic.
What you just shared with me is inspiring, Emily. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to get to visit with you and learn really about a tool that every entrepreneur needs to learn. So thank you for that. And thank you for all you're doing in the entrepreneurial community.
Thank you. So question for you. Now that we talked about delegation a little more, are there 3 new adjectives that come up for you when you think about it?
Oh, I feel like I've been tricked into having a learning here. Yes. So let's see. 3 new adjectives. Doable, if that's an adjective. How about, I think it's something I aspire to do, and not in a one day, someday type of mentality, but a today type of mentality. So we'll get together offline, and like I said, you'll have a new client. The third one would be challenging yet simple.
Cool. So aspiration,
like one of those things.
Doable, challenging, and simple. I love it. Awesome. Well, the ebook walks you through all of that. So lots of exercises, just like what we just did here.
Awesome. Well, because I'm old, I printed out the ebook. So now it's a hard copy book for me to use it in the notebook for. Well, everyone else out there, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Let's Go, where we're here to continue to help companies and entrepreneurs build kick-ass next level teams. And as we like to say, our mantra is no excuses. Let's go.
Sweet.